Yes, folks, it's President's Day 2025, and a lot going on in the world. European leaders are to host a Ukraine summit as Trump pushes peace talks with Russia. European leaders scramble ahead of Trump's Ukraine summit with Putin, and European leaders regroup in Paris for a strategy huddle after Trump's diplomatic blitz and everything like that. So, definitely a lot going on in that space. So, people are still upset at Vance and some of the remarks he made in terms of European support for Ukraine and all along those lines. U.S. gears up for the highest profile Russian talks since the Ukraine invasion. Russia and U.S. confirmed Ukraine talks in Saudi Arabia. So, top Russian and American officials will hold talks on ending the Ukraine war without Kyiv. Rubio is in Saudi Arabia to discuss the Gaza ceasefire and the Ukraine war. And Europe must step up on Ukraine, says Keir Starmer. UK offers Ukraine peacekeeping troops as European resolve hardens. So Germany to reject Starmer's plan for troops in Ukraine as Europe splits over the peace deal. So definitely that's going on as well. An Indian court sentences a man to prison in sentences a man to life in prison for raping and murdering an Irish backpacker. And Pope Francis is to remain in the hospital longer than expected. Pope Francis' hospital treatment changed to flight the complex clinical condition. So doctors changed Pope's treatment to tackle the complex situation, according to what the Vatican says. So it looks like he's remaining hospitalized for complex respiratory infection, according to what's going on in that world. And Bukavu in the Democratic Republic of Congo falls to Rwandan-backed M23 rebels. So Rwandan-backed M23 rebels occupy a second major city in Congo's mineral-rich east. So Rwanda-backed M23 rebels captured the East Democratic Republic of Congo's second largest city. So that's something else that we're going to see as well. And Germany's economy is in the dumps. Here are 5 reasons why. So people are looking at what's going on in that space as they're getting ready for an election as well. And Korea suspends access to China-based DeepSeek app. So South Korea bans downloads of DeepSeek, the Chinese AI app. So that's something else that folks will be paying attention to as well. And Israel and Hamas make 6 exchange, keeping ceasefire intact for now. Freed hostage learned fate of family day before release, survived on love, according to what one of the wives said, and all like that. Israel and Hamas complete their latest exchange as ceasefire's first phase has just 2 weeks left. So definitely looks like that's going on as well. And Netanyahu says with U.S. support, we can finish the job against Iran. So Rubio reaffirms Trump's Gaza takeover plan on the trip to Israel, and Rubio met with Netanyahu in Israel. So Rubio and Netanyahu affirmed a common strategy for Gaza and set the sights on Iran in a joint statement. And Israeli military says it killed a Hamas official in southern Lebanon. Senior Hamas terrorists killed in southern Lebanon, IDF confirms. So women killed as Israeli forces fire on returnees to southern Lebanon ahead of that ceasefire. And definitely that's going on. And also fire reported as at an oil refinery in Russia's Krasnodar Krai following a massive drone attack. Well, those drones are still attacking in that conflict as well. Ukrainian drone attack injures 1 in Russia's Krasnodar region, according to their governor. And a stampede at a railway station in India kills at least 18. India crowd crush survivor described chaos as death toll rises. And so that's something folks are talking about as well. And Alexei Navalny supporter visits grave on the first anniversary of his death. So that's something that folks are talking about in terms of the Russian situation and all along those lines. And Masan Hendricks, the world's first openly gay imam, was shot dead in South Africa. So man hailed is the world's first imam to say he was gay is shot dead in South Africa. So that's something that is going on in the world as well. So lots going on. And Austria says stabbing attack suspect swore allegiance to Islamic State. So suspect in fatal stabbing in Austria had Islamic terror motive, according to what some officials are saying in that part of the world as well. So lots going on, including what's going on in the Ukrainian conflict, as well as the conflict in the Middle East as well. Ohio Task Force One called to assist Kentucky in a deadly flood aftermath. And speaking of weather, it looks like we might be getting some snow and some sleet and stuff like that. I think they're saying it might roll into North Carolina in Wednesday or Thursday. So they're already preparing for that potential winter shock and everything. And the Supreme Court is considering Trump's power, and Musk's team wants access to the IRS. So Musk Dodge seeks access to personal taxpayer data, raising alarm at the IRS. And so definitely it looks like there might be possible Doge access to private taxpayer data, and that is sparking outcries. And Trump administration tries to bring back fired nuclear weapons worker in a Doge situation. So Trump fired, then unfired the National Nuclear Security Administration employee and all along those lines. And we did have another executive order, this one involving plastic straws. So I think that they're trying to ban those, if I remember it correctly. And I think I heard that yesterday and all along those lines. And Musk SpaceX team visiting key FAA command center despite past frictions. So Duffy brings up Clinton while noting SpaceX workers will visit air traffic control system command center. So Musk SpaceX personnel to visit FAA on Monday to suggest improvement. So they're trying to figure out some improvements and all along those lines. And China condemns the U.S. after line on Taiwan independence cut from sight. So change to the State Department website sparks fiery rebuke from Beijing over Taiwan independence. So China accuses U.S. of serious regression in its Taiwan position after change to the State Department website. So I guess they're trying to get their websites together as well. And like I said, the polar vortex is to bring frigid temperatures, snow, and ice to billions of Americans, including possibly some right here in North Carolina. So the polar vortex will bring frostbite-inducing temperatures for millions through this week. So it's returning to the U.S. as life-threatening cold invades millions as far south as Texas. So it looks like we're going to have some bad weather and all along those lines. But if you're on the West Coast, you might be getting some as well. So a frigid air snow ban to sweep Colorado, and travel disruption is possible in that area as well. So Monday morning snow causes backup and road closures in the mountains, and treacherous travel across Colorado's mountains on President's Day. Arctic blast arrives on Monday. So maybe just the entire country is about to have a Arctic blast and everything. So it looks like the next cross-country storm to bring snow and extreme cold. And I know I've got Rick with me, and he's used to that because he spent some time in that whole area of Colorado. But the Trump administration is to ask the Supreme Court to keep fired government watchdog off the job as case pens. So Trump is asking the Supreme Court to let him fire ethics watchdogs and everything like that. So definitely it looks like that's going on. And Vance gave a real warning to Europe. Moulton recaps a turbulent Munich security conference, and the German chancellor slams Vance's call for Europe to be inclusive of far-right parties. So Europe ponders seismic shift in U.S. relations following Vance's speech. And New York Democrats blast DOJ's dismissal of Eric Adams' case as outright extortion. It's now up to the judge whether to drop the charges in Adams' case, and we'll see what goes on in that. And college and K-12 schools are ordered by Trump administration to abolish DEI or face some consequences in their funding. So DOJ and the Education Department threaten state funding if they don't cut DEI programs. So that's something else that we're seeing in the as well. So, and Zelensky is telling aides to reject the U.S. pitch for 50% of Ukraine's rare earth minerals. So that's something else going on. And the New York law enforcement, Minnesota man who was tortured and killed apparently knew his assailant. And the Justice Department's independence is threatened as Trump's team asserts power. So definitely a lot going on. It looks like Trump is just digging in and getting all kinds of things in that regards. And it looks like I'm not sure. I have to find out if the stock market is open. It is President's Day and everything. So there was actually an article saying what was open and what was closed. And I can't remember if President's Day is one of those things that is taken off and all along those lines. Maybe Rick's got an idea, or maybe Sasha does, or Jatovi, or somebody else.
It's closed. Stock market's closed today.
Okay, cool. So how's everybody doing? Y'all can tell I'm fighting a cold, but other than that, life is dandy and everything like that. But it looks like we're about to have this wintry mix and everything. So it looks like there's going to be bad weather from here to Colorado and all over the country. So are you digging in and ready for your snow apocalypse?
We don't. The last time LA got snow was in the 1940s or 50s, so we'll be okay.
Y'all will be okay in that area and everything. They are saying that high winds knocked out power to 118,000 BGE customers in Baltimore. So they sent more crews for power restoration and high winds and everything like that. Hey, Sasha, I know you talked about it on Friday, but what is your take on these peace talks? It looks like they are going on in Saudi Arabia and everything like that. So are we going to see a peace come to the country around the Ukraine and Russia sometime in the next day or two, or what is your take on that?
The last thing what I would do, I would call it a peace talk. It is not peace talk at all. This is a power grab by Trump and his people, using the peace talk as a means to get to the table with Putin one-on-one and talk to him and later to Emperor Xi to divide the world and rule it together. The Ukraine, Europe, by the way, Europe hasn't been even invited to peace talk, and Europe helped Ukraine more in financial terms, including, than United States. So United States is using this and what they've done to now to get Ukraine a sort of out of negotiations. What they did, they sent this, what's his name, this bookkeeper, Bennett, or somebody, U.S., the top bookkeeper. They sent to Ukraine to sign a paper that Ukraine would assign all its mineral wealth to United States without even stating for what consideration. There is nothing of that. So obviously, Zelensky, Ukraine, refused to sign that. So now Trump can say, well, look, we were trying to help them and they refused to sign anything. To hell with Ukraine. How can we help the country which is not signing what we were trying to help them and they refuse our help? Okay, hell with them. So Europe hasn't been even invited to this so-called peace negotiations. Why? They don't need neither Ukraine or Europe at this table where all the world will be divided. And I can go as far as to suggest that in near future, US will get out of NATO. They will join BRICS, and together with China and Russia and whoever else is in BRICS, they will rule the world. That's a scenario that we unfortunately will witness in the next few days.
It could be that and everything. Hey, just really quickly, and this is for Rick. I did see that apparently there's some pushback in terms of Republican leadership, and apparently there was an article in the Associated Press that said that Trump may be running into an old enemy. So they are saying that Mike Pence is emerging as one of the few Republicans willing to challenge Trump 2.0. So are we going to see a resurgence of
That
Pence?
would be great. So Pence stood up to him on January 6th. And Pence really doesn't have any political career left. It got burnt down on J6 when he defied Trump. So if he's willing to continue to he's been a bland, politician his whole career. But if he's willing to catch on fire and just be a thorn in Trump's side, he could be a hero the way Liz Cheney became a hero, or Adam Kinzinger.
Yep, definitely. What's your take on that, Kim? I see you've joined us and everything, but I was just reading an article on the Associated Press that says that Mike Pence is emerging as one of the few Republicans willing to challenge Trump 2.0. And I know you talked to some MAGA types, some that are in your family and some that are not. So are we going to see some people that are willing on the Republican side to stand up against Trump?
I think that would be a very big mistake. Trump champions himself when he's a victim. And any resistance like this from his own party will just cause him to be a victim. And that's how he has championed himself with the people. Again, you have to remember that majority of the people that voted for him, they are just very simple life people, and they sympathized with all of the pain and suffering that everyone put him through. And I think the best way to do anything is to give him enough rope to hang himself. And one of the biggest things is people need to ask more questions. Oops. One of the biggest questions, you see they're attacking me now. One of the biggest questions you need to ask is the U.S. Treasury really safe in Elon's hands, given the fact that they were so reckless with Doge that it got hacked? I mean, come on. I mean, you're giving access to somebody who, in less than a few weeks, it's been hacked, to our U.S. Treasury. Or maybe he opened the doors for the hackers. Who knows? But I will say this. I'm going to ask everyone to take a day of rest and a remembrance on February 28th. This has been going around. But just take a rest of and remembrance of COVID. Remember what it was like. Don't go out. Don't go buy anything. Stay home. Pray. Remember those who died unnecessarily from COVID. And just pray a lot and take a rest. And two things that this will achieve. Don't spend any money, not on cyber or anything. And by giving cyber a little bit of a rest, it's going to scare those cyber crooks a little bit. They're going to go, hey, what's going on? Or maybe they know. But just take a break and remember what it was like during COVID, and pray that we never have to live through that again, and that we do one day get back to some kind of normal, because we're still not in any kind of normal. So I would, February 28th, starting at 1 a.m. in the morning and going till 11:59 p.m. that night.
Speaking of that and everything,
so
one of the things,
my take on, I just don't think anyone should resist Trump. I think we should give him enough rope to hang himself.
He may just hang himself and everything like that. Just really quickly, and maybe Jacoby's got some thoughts around this, or Rick. One of the things that because there was a story, it was actually one of our earlier, I think it might have been one of the online dinner parties and everything, but there was a woman that was very much in the fight to get rid of plastic straws because of the damage that they do, and they put all kinds of chemicals in our body and everything like that. But apparently this is one of the more positive executive orders, because he's trying to ban straws, paper straws, plastic straws, and all along those lines. So what is your take, and do you stay away from plastic straws, Rick and Jacoby? And is this a good executive order? Because I did see that, I think, come down yesterday or something like that. But I do know that there have been people that talk about the amount of plastics that go into our body from the use of straws and other things like that. But he did sign this executive order, and maybe this is something that RFK came up with. There was a positive. So what is our take on this notion of getting rid of plastic straws?
I try to stay away from straws in general because I want to look manly. James Bond would never use a straw to sip a martini. Real men don't use any kind of straw, unless you're having boba, and then you need a straw.
I think that there's a time and place. What's great about the plastic straws is sometimes in the hospital, you've got people who need to drink from a straw, and plastic is a little bit easier. That if you bite down by accident on it, it won't hurt your teeth or break if it's metal or glass. They've got all different kinds of straws. Paper tends to melt really fast and doesn't do a very good job, and I think would choke a patient. I think that there's a place for everything, and I think limiting your use of straws. Hey, women, listen up. Straws give you those really ugly wrinkles around your mouth. I don't use them because of that. I smile because an upside down frown is better than plastic surgery, and it lifts the face. So, I mean, but using a straw is not good for your mouth. So,
one thing to do, I am using a straw because around my computer, because if something spills, I don't want to destroy all my, but just use a plastic straw, but just reuse it. My wife hates all the plastic cups that I keep reusing because they're fine. I've used this plastic cup like 80 times, so that's fine if you just don't toss it after one use.
I love your wife. I do the same thing. And then if I feel like it's been used too much, I use them to grow plants in because they make a great way to start seeds because you can also watch them grow in a clear cup. But
Watch them grow in that clear cup and everything. Jatovia, I know you got your young one with you and everything, but anybody wants to take this and all along those lines. But the other thing that was in the news big time is that NIH funding, it could be in jeopardy. And I know that there are people on this network that have family members in the medical field, and I've got friends in the medical field. So are we going to see medical research cuts that could hit colleges and hospitals in every state? I mean, right here in North Carolina, we've got some major hospitals like Duke and UNC and even Bowman Gray down there in Winston-Salem and everything. So are we going to see, because of this cut in NIH funding, some serious consequences in terms of the nature of how we are treating our medical society and all along those lines? Anybody want to take that one or any thoughts around that? Because that was a big issue where folks were concerned about the funding that was being cut because of the Trump administration cuts in several departments.
We'll see if it's well, okay, so you got a measles outbreak in rural Texas. 200 to 300 cases, they estimate, 49 official cases, 13 of those hospitalized, most of those kids. Now, that's a somewhat unique, well, not unique, but it's not your usual anti-vaxxers. It's Mennonites who are, like Amish adjacent. So, but if we start getting, and bird flu is ripping, most of the problem with eggs is bird flu leading to farmers having to kill chickens to prevent it from spreading. And if it continues to rip through animal populations, it's only, it's not very infectious for people. There have only been a couple dozen cases in people. But if Trump rips the guts out of our pandemic prep system, as he did before COVID hit, then we could get hit with another pandemic.
Yeah, that's definitely
the
case.
I mean, so how bad? I'm not putting measles in a category of any kind, but a lot of older people have been vaccinated for the measles. How bad would an outbreak be? Because I could remember back in the day, when you found out your neighbor's child had the measles, the parents all ran over and let their kids play with each other.
That's chicken pox. I don't know if it's measles. Chicken pox was where you had chicken pox parties and people had their kids. And measles can be more serious.
Measles is much more serious.
But how bad do you think it would be in our population, given that how much of our population is vaccinated against the measles?
80%, like in some of the crappier anti-vaxxer parts of the country, it can be as low as 80%, which is bad. You need measles vaccinations to run at 95% of the population, because measles is super contagious.
Yep, measles
way more contagious than COVID.
Yeah, it's more contagious than COVID for sure. By the way, because one of the other things that came up during the time that Trump was running was this notion of we were going to lower the cost and everything like that. So Hakeem Jeffries, a major Democratic leader, has decried Trump's toxic bait and switch presidency. So he says that Trump and the GOP are showing no interest in lowering the cost of living, and he said Republicans consistently promised that they were going to lower the high cost of living, and they've done the exact opposite. So
how would they do it? Would Trump just do an executive order saying you can't sell eggs for more than $4 a dozen? That would just mean no eggs are being sold. Go ahead.
The problem is that he campaigned every single time that he could lower the prices and that he had a plan to do so. So he legitimately said he was the only one that could do it. And that was why people actually voted for him. So we can't give into the idea that how would he do it? That's not what he said. He said that he was going to do it. So we have to hold him accountable.
No. He said he was going to do it the first day he was in office. Now all of his supporters go, oh, man, you guys are crazy. You need to give him time to fix this problem. This problem takes forever. And I go, but you didn't give Biden time? I mean, why are you giving Trump time? He promised. He promised. Biden didn't promise.
When I say how could he possibly do it? That's only half the argument. The other half of the argument is Trump is always full of shit and he played you again.
That's right.
So, and that's the deal. Like,
the thing is now they're forgiving him. They forgive him more than they do anyone else. They go, oh, it's still going to be better. No, it's not. It's going to get worse. And he's going to blame Biden. But the thing is you never gave Biden a chance. Things were better under Biden. The only reason why you felt like things were better under Trump is because for about a year and a half under Trump, we didn't get to do anything. We stayed home and saved our money. If you were making money, you saved a lot of money. And then the minute the doors were open, you spent money like a mad person. So no, it wasn't better for you under Biden because you went excessive either way. For those of us who knew how to control ourselves, it was okay either way.
Now,
I spent less.
Trump has simple-minded solutions, and if he follows the strategies he's done in the past, he'll send every American, a check for $250 with his name on it that says Donald Trump egg and gas money. He says,
that's right.
And
meanwhile, he's going to give all the wealthy people another tax cut and another PPP loan of $2 million each, so that they can do whatever they want.
He's not going to give out any money unless it's to the rich individuals. What he's doing for his simple-minded for his voters is that he's flooding the zone so they can't follow what he's doing. And so he can say he's doing a lot. He showed up at Daytona. Why? Because many of his voters are there while they're enjoying the Daytona 500, enjoying seeing Trump. They're forgetting about they're paying more for this. So it's an easy way to manipulate people and make them forget and make them not hold him accountable, because their big talking point right now is, hey, he's more accessible. He's doing more than Biden. He's more transparent. No, you're not transparent when you're lying. You're not transparent when you're not answering any of the questions. You're not being held accountable for what you said that you were going to do.
Hey,
so somebody did the math and calculated that his Daytona appearance cost the government about $5 million, because you got to take Air Force One, you've got to have all this security. They flew his limo out, which is this limo that weighs like, I don't know, 30,000 pounds, because everything's bulletproof and bomb-proof, and he raced the limo around the track. And
Rick, that is all a show. He's great at putting on a show, because
remember, these people like to watch the Super Bowl and spend thousands of dollars on the Super Bowl, then complain that they can't get their nails done and life is so horrible under Trump. So remember, these are people who will go blow their money on a Daytona race or sit and watch it on their TV with a beer. That's what he caters to them. Yeah, it's a show. Just like this way, though.
Hold on a second, just really quickly, because I was going to direct this toward you, Jacoby, because one of the things that I heard about one of the things about the Daytona trip is that I heard that a lot of the NASCAR racers, and we know that NASCAR participants and fans were not that thrilled that Trump was in the audience. I know there were people that weren't thrilled that he was in the
because they can't do anything. You got to sit there with your hands in your lap.
No, it doesn't matter. Not that many people were thrilled at him being at the Super Bowl, but he went. Not that many people were thrilled. That's not the point. Again, he was there. He then went and put out all these messages on his social media about his trip. He didn't really talk about any of the flooding that happened. Nobody talked about that. Why? because now he has to take FEMA to go to the floods. What does he want to cut? FEMA. So, of course, he is distracting. He doesn't care about the money being spent, because what it is he can put on these giant shows and people forget about the actual reality that is happening.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Did you see the quote from Bubba Wallace, who basically said he's an African American racer and everything, and he said that he was there for the race and not for this other side show, because that's basically what he considered Trump and everything like that. So he was there to run the race and try to win the race. I don't think that he did that well and everything, but he was basically like saying that it was a distraction as far as he was concerned and everything.
Yeah, I mean, all of the racers. It's a distraction. Him being there is a distraction. Him being the first. You know why no other president went? Because they knew it was a distraction. I mean, it's just a show for his people. And that takes their mind off the fact that they're paying extra for this, paying extra for that. They're missing the floods and people dying on his watch.
Well, speaking of things that are happening on people's watches and everything, I wish that Nick was here on this particular day, but there was an article in The Hill that is talking about the destruction of the USAID, the USAID, and they're saying that it's a canary in America's democracy coal mine. So some of the people are wondering if he is defying the Constitution. So what is our take on this? We know that definitely Robert Kennedy has been appointed and everything, but are we going to actually see it being problematic, this destruction of USAID, which is supposed to help not just people here, but around the world and everything? So what is y'all's take on this particular other agency that might be getting gutted?
Yeah, it's a problem. I mean, one of the problems for Americans is for farmers who had a deal to sell $2 billion worth of U.S. food products via USAID to countries that need it around the world, and that food is just rotting places now because taking down USAID took down all these deals.
Yeah, that makes sense. What is your
farmers for the past 34 years have had a super high suicide rate, and it got even higher under Trump 1 because of the tariffs he put in the first time he was president. Made it harder for farmers to move grain, and farmers kill themselves at a rate 3.5 times everybody else.
Yeah, just really quickly along those same lines, and this is for everybody. What is our take on? Because there was this joke. I think even Reverend Barber talked about him declaring himself emperor, and he did make this statement over the weekend about being like Napoleon and everything like that.
He said it's nothing. He said it's not against the law or Constitution if you're saving the country. And so, which is basically saying I can do whatever I want because I'm doing it for the good of the country. Which is that, I mean, it didn't work for Napoleon. Napoleon was exiled, I guess they took Napoleon prisoner and they stuck him on an island.
Right.
And then he got off the island, he became leader again, and then after a couple more disastrous defeats, they put him on a different island.
Yep, that is definitely the case and everything like that. Hey, Sasha, how is the weather going there in Canada and everything like that? And also, how is the economy of Canada going? Because we keep talking about what's going on in the economy here in the U.S., but y'all are facing an election as well. And I know you're not a fan of the current person in leadership, but I don't think you'll be the new person in leadership. So is the economy doing well there in Canada? And is that going to be a major talking point in this year's election? Because I do know y'all have an election coming up as well.
Okay, it's snowy, it's cold, number one. Number two, election. Before the federal election, there has to be election of the leader of the Liberal Party, which will be on March 9th. Now, once it's done and over with, then the next step will be a federal election. And it will be very interesting to see if progressive conservatives could win majority, so they would not need any coalition to form with NDP, because very often they would win majority but they wouldn't get up to 50%, so they would need make a coalition. And NDP was always preferring coalition with liberals, so that's how Trudeau was in power for so many years, although he never ever won any single election in Canada. So we'll see how it will play out this time. I really think that progressive conservatives could get more than 50%, and maybe this year, maybe NDP will not rush to do coalition with liberals as they've done lately.
Hey, Sasha, speaking of coalitions and everything, what is your take on Vance's trip over to Europe and everything, and his basically insulting the European leaders, because he was basically saying that they were not doing enough to support Ukraine and all along those lines. So I just wanted your take on Vance when he went over there, and apparently he called folks out. I think the German chancellor wasn't too thrilled with him and actually made some comments back to him saying, basically to stay out of our way and everything along those lines. But what is your take on Vance's foreign trip? I think this was his first foreign trip since becoming vice president. So what was your take on this particular visit, and did he put his foot in his mouth?
He couldn't do much better job of alienating Trump's United States from Europe. He couldn't done any much better job than this. But the most important thing, it's not Ukraine right now in the focus of Trump politics. The peace in Ukraine, maybe there will be a peace, maybe there will not be a peace, it doesn't matter. What he wants to rule the world together with Putin and Xi from China. Now, Europe, he is trying to destabilize Europe by supporting far-right parties like ADF in Germany, and that's what he wants. He was right when he says that Europe has to be mindful of being torn apart from within, and that within is clearly supported by Trump and his people. I'll tell you one thing, this nightmare will continue for another year and a half. The midterm election of 2026 will fix all this idiocy of the United States.
So let's talk about the midterms. If you look at statistics that analyze how the Dems should do in 2026 based on the predicted popularity of Trump, which will probably be around 45% approval by 2026, the Dems are expected to pick up 30 seats in the House, which is probably an overestimate because these statistics are based on the past, 70 years, and things are much more divided. But the Dems only have to pick up 3 seats to pick up a majority. So even if they don't get the full 30, it looks good for the Dems in the House. Statistically, Dems are expected to pick up 6 seats in the Senate. Again, probably an overestimate, but all they need to do is pick up 3 or 4, and they've got a majority there. So the odds that they pick up at least half of the Congress, either the House or the Senate, well over 90%. So yeah, in a year and a half or so, to 21 months from now, things might look better. Here's what's going on this morning with Elon Musk, who just tweeted out a set of statistics from the Social Security database showing that there are 394 million Americans listed as living in the Social Security database, even though there are only 340 actual Americans living in America right now. And he's saying this is evidence of massive fraud, that it lists 700 people who are over 180 years old, 450 people who are more than 190 years old. And to most people, to Musk, this says fraud. To most people, this says it's just errors in the database, that nobody who's 190 years old is getting a Social Security check. And that Musk is just putting out these bullshitty numbers to get people worked up.
Sounds like it and everything.
That right there is your answer, Rick. He's basically putting out stuff to rile people up. He even said in the Oval Office, sometimes he doesn't say the truth or whatever. He lies. He's not right. Well, I'm sorry. When you already put out all this information, people are believing you on instant, and you never come back and say, hey, this is untrue. You never cover that up. You never fix it. So the lie is already out there, and that's the whole point, because he's easily manipulating people into fear. Also, it just saw that there are 40 million up under a weather warning. 12 people have died in Virginia from the flooding, Indiana. While we were talking about U.S. aid, I remember I saw this earlier this weekend, which actually discusses the problems that are happening and the reason why when he cut U.S. aid, this is a huge issue.
Welcome back. We take a closer look now at the real people caught up in Trump's overhaul of USAID. As we've discussed, the sweeping changes and suspensions are having devastating repercussions everywhere, from Africa, Latin America to Southeast Asia. In Uganda, the health ministry has announced the closure of all HIV clinics, providing treatments and preventative measures to 1.5 million people. In Colombia, Brazil, and Guatemala, millions of vulnerable Venezuelan immigrants and refugees are now left high and dry. Experts are warning the cuts and the chaos they've created will cost lives. On the Thai-Myanmar border, Ivan Watson takes us inside a refugee camp where people are unable to access critical medical care anymore.
This is what happens when the world's biggest aid donor suddenly stops sending money. Families ordered to evacuate their sick loved ones from this hospital in the mountains of western Thailand. Days later, the hospital deserted, its front gate locked shut. This is a refugee camp for tens of thousands of people who fled the civil war across the nearby border in neighboring Myanmar. The hospital here largely depended on U.S. government funding, which suddenly stopped. And now, nearly 2 weeks later, there isn't a single doctor on duty for this community of more than 30,000 people. It's a 30-minute drive from this sprawling refugee camp to the nearest Thai hospital. The director here shocked by the sudden closure of the camp hospital. Has this been stressful these last 2 weeks for you?
Yes, I think so. Yeah. So dangerous.
His facility has to suddenly absorb some of the refugee camp's patients. And that includes 32-year-old Mary.
Is this your first baby?
Yeah.
You're going to be a mama soon. You're going to be a mother.
Yeah.
Suffering high blood pressure, she was rushed to this maternity ward this morning and is now in labor, far from her family and home at the camp.
I
just want to ask the U.S. government why they have to stop helping the refugees.
On January 20th, President Donald Trump ordered an immediate 90-day pause in all U.S. foreign aid. He declared the U.S. aid industry is not aligned with American interests and claims it serves to destabilize world peace. For years, Myanmar has been ripped apart by a brutal civil war. A military dictatorship that seized power in a coup in 2021, battling numerous insurgent groups. The conflicts forced more than 3 million people to flee their homes. And now aid organizations tell CNN they only have a month and a half of funding left to feed refugees along the Thai border with Myanmar, leaving smaller aid groups scrambling to fill the gap.
You're going into Myanmar.
This will go across the border. Yeah.
Kanchana Thornton regularly takes food, infant formula, and medicine across the border river to desperate people in the conflict zone. The U.S. funding cut made matters worse.
Why is it affecting you? You don't get money from Washington.
Well, patients come to us and asking us for help.
Because they're not getting it from the original.
Because they're not getting support that they should from the NGO that got the funding cut.
Everywhere we go in this poverty-stricken border region, we hear about basic services disrupted and aid workers being laid off. This clinic treats nearly 500 patients a day. It receives nearly 20% of its funding from the U.S. government. Washington has been sending money here for at least 20 years, but now all of that has stopped. Uncertainty now felt by Rebecca and her 9-year-old daughter, Rosella.
Yeah, can you show me your favorite pictures?
The residents of the refugee camp who had to move out of the hospital when it shut down last month. Even though Rosella was born with a bone condition, she needs oxygen around the clock. My daughter needs the hospital to be open, Rebecca says, and so do I, because I'm pregnant. The cut in U.S. funding means this pregnant mother no longer has access to a doctor, and she doesn't know how much longer her daughter's oxygen will last. Ivan Watson, CNN, on the Thailand-Myanmar border.
Coming up, Jeremy.
So yeah, that's just one place that U.S. aid is now being cut off from, and now the death is now behind that.
Just really quickly along those same lines, and you kind of brought it up, Sasha, and everything, but how much are we going to see some of these conflict zones becoming a divided area and everything? Because as you heard me say, there are conflicts not just in Ukraine and in the Middle East, but there is a major one in Africa, and it is a mineral-rich area. So I'm thinking that there are powers that be in the West and among some of the leading countries that would like to get their access to the mineral riches of the Democratic Republic of Congo, and maybe even some of the things that Rwanda has as well. So are we going to see kind of like what happened back on the in history, where the big countries will be dividing up the countries of Africa and Asia because of their mineral riches?
Well, I would say that the war for mineral riches, this is something what quite existed for quite a while. And the same in Africa, there were many wars historically for mineral riches. The war in Ukraine and Russia, Russia is an aggressor who started this war without any cause, and it's not even about mineral riches. There is a political goal of Putin to completely destroy Ukraine unless it will completely disobey Russia, or obey Russia and be essentially a part of Russia, maybe as some kind of separate entity, maybe even not. I'm not even sure what Russia's real plan is. What is horrible is that under new administration, United States became the staunch Putin's supporter, and not only that, he's using the pretense of trying to work out a peace in Ukraine, but in the meantime, so far, what we know really existed is a document which United States asked Zelensky to sign, where he would provide all the Ukraine's mineral riches to U.S. use, without providing any consideration for that. So basically, by pretending that they're trying to work out a peace between Ukraine and Russia, Trump is just trying to grab something to which he has no rights whatsoever.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So foreign aid makes the world our friend because we're giving the world help. China, in the past decade, has spent $1 trillion on its Belt and Road Initiative. I don't know why it's called that. I should probably look it up. But that is basically China giving aid to foreign countries to be their friend. $100 billion a year. And by being the world's friend, China gets to get sweet deals for minerals. And we're only spending $60 billion a year to be the world's friend. When you're the world's friend, the world makes deals with you. And that's one. When we back away and we let China step in, China gets the resources.
Yeah, they definitely get a lot of the resources and everything along those lines. I'm actually going to see if I can find out why it's called the Belt and Road Initiative. If Sasha or anybody has any idea, otherwise I'll try to figure it out if I can find it out on the internet and Google, that wonderful Google and everything. But definitely along those lines, the Belt and Road Initiative. Let's see what it's called.
I just saw a report that said Zelensky's not going to accept any offer if they're not at the table.
And he will not accept the offer at all. And apparently, the Belt and Road Initiative is a Chinese government strategy to improve connectivity and trade between Asia, Africa, and Europe. The BRI is also known as the One Belt, One Road, and the New Silk Road. So the goal increases trade, improves regional integration, and stimulate economic growth. So the BRI includes the Silk Road Economic Belt and the 21st Century Maritime Silk Road, and it's made up of 6 land corridors linked by road, rail, energy, and digital infrastructure. And the Maritime Silk Road is linked by port development. So some criticism that the BRI for debt trap diplomacy, hidden debts, and economic coercion, and other cite economic problems like slow progress, higher financial costs, and non-transparent bidding process. So the World Bank Group has produced research and economic models to assess the opportunities and risk of the BRI projects. And apparently the spending for the BRI has surpassed $1 trillion. So they plan to recoup the investment through debt repayment plans. So it looks like it's an ambitious plan, but yeah, that's a whole lot of money, $1 trillion. But then again,
I'm looking at a map of the New Silk Road, and it's basically to have an area of connected roads and economic dominance that includes as far away as New Zealand and Australia, all of Russia, parts of Africa, the Far East, East Asia, South Asia, into the stands, the Kazakhstans, the Kyrgyzstans, into Europe. China wants to dominate, most of the people in the world economically by making deals with them and being their friend. Africa will be the only continent where the population is growing after 2050. The world baby shortage will hit Africa last. And if you want human resources and mineral resources, you go into Africa. That's what China's doing.
Yep, that makes sense. Everything. We all know. I'm actually going to end on a light note so that Kim can have fun with this one as we go. We got about 5 minutes to go, but I'm going to actually tease you and everything. Rick and Jacoby as well. We all know the story from the Bible of Jonah, who was swallowed by the whale and everything. And apparently outside of Chile, there was a incident that was similar. Somebody was swallowed by a large whale and everything, but apparently the whale did not like the flavor of the human and everything. So they literally spit the person out. They were swallowing a kayaker and everything. So I was just wondering, if you were to be swallowed by a whale, anybody here, would y'all be the ones that they would be rejecting and all along those lines? Because it was in the Chilean Patagonia, and apparently it was captured on camera. I think the gentleman's friend, or it might have even been their relative, caught them on camera being swallowed by the whale, and I guess the whale was like, I don't like this flavor, and spit the person out and everything.
So my wife tells me that I don't shower enough and that I smell like vitamins and yeast. So yeah, a whale would definitely spit me out.
What about you, Jacoby? Would the whale be spitting you out? And what about you, Kim? Because like I said, when I saw that story, I'm going like, I guess the whales don't like humans.
I mean, we must taste really bad, is all I figure. We eat the worst things in the world. And I just think that, we're not a tasty thing. Probably too salty. We're probably a bad diet. So, yeah.
So Adam Carolla, a few years ago, decided that Americans bathe too frequently. Mm-hmm. So he cut back on bathing. And I decided to follow Carolla. Now, Carolla is now divorced. So, maybe he should, I don't know. But since I quit washing my hair stays on my head a lot better than it did when I was shampooing every day.
I mean, I do the same. I quit shampooing my hair every day, and it's healthier. It's thicker now, and it's not oily all the time. I think our body tries to overproduce the oils when we're washing them off all the time. So, after about a month or two of stretching out the distance between washes, my hair has really, really become a lot healthier.
Well, there's a major incident that took place and everything in the world. It's a major TV show. Maybe Jacoby's got some thoughts about it, but apparently SNL celebrated its 50th anniversary, and I don't think that they'll be rushing to get President Trump on that show. But there's been a number of folks, including some MAGA people like Tom Hanks and everything. But just what is our thoughts on this monumentous occasion? I mean, it's a little bit.
My favorite fact from the show, somebody celebrated, we watched the whole thing. And he came out and said what a good track record they had, because out of 900 guest hosts, only 2 of them were murderers.
And which 2 of those?
I think Robert Blake and OJ.
Okay. So two out of that many over a 50-year period and everything like that. That's major. For those of you that have got kids, and I know Toby had his kids earlier and everything, apparently there is a major book that is about to be re-released and everything. So people are looking at Paddington 2, Paddington in Peru. And I did remember Paddington when I was a young person and everything, but they are talking about that. So are you going to have your kid watching the Paddington in Peru and everything like that, or one of your 2 kids, Jacoby?
I know what's neat about I live in Studio City, which they call it that because there's a big movie studio less than a mile from my house, and there's a bus stop a few blocks from my house that they've turned into Peru, for Paddington in Peru. They take it's a bus shelter and they covered it with foliage and it says Paddington in Peru, and you can go sit in the bus and wait for a bus and feel like you're in Peru. When they did Gladiator, they turned the bus shelter into like where the emperor sits to watch in the Colosseum to watch the gladiators fight. So it's fun to live in a media city.
Sounds like it and everything. I think that there is another movie that is coming out. I guess some people are upset because, I know that the current president talks about wokeness and political wokeness and everything. But I think that there is a new Captain America. And if I'm remembering correctly, the new Captain America is actually African-American and all along those lines. So what is our take on this notion? I'm thinking that Trump's not going to be rushing to go see this new version of Captain America and everything like that. So what is
I don't know if this is a spoiler, but President Harrison Ford in the movie hulks out. He turns into a giant red Hulk, which makes me sad because Harrison Ford is like 81 years old, basically the same age as Biden. Mm-hmm. And if Biden had aged as well as Harrison Ford, Trump wouldn't be president.
But in terms of the movie, it's not actually a new thing. This has been around for a long time in the comics. Falcon takes over to being Captain America. Also, the Winter Soldier takes over for being Captain America in a particular times within the comics. But this is just a normal thing. People are upset because they didn't. I mean, it's the same old thing. Captain America is white. Also, that's their belief. Also, Mackie had said something that was actually similar to what Chris Evans said, and that got people upset because Mackie had said that had been asked, is Captain America a representation of America or something crazy? And he's like, no, it's a representation of, all these particular things, and that's what it is. And people got upset that they didn't. It wasn't this whole flag waving, let me hug, and this MAGA answer that they would give. But yeah, so the Captain America being black is it's all part of the.
Why can't Captain America be a woman? I mean, we got she-heroes too. As they call
just to answer that real quick though, Kim, in the comic books, and this is the beauty of what has me always laugh at individuals such as MAGA who get upset at all these different things. for example, Captain Marvel is one of the characters in of course, in the Marvel universe. Captain Marvel actually takes over and becomes the actual leader of the actual defense system and everything else. Because there were two major arcs. There's Civil War I and Civil War II. At the end of Civil War I is where Captain America actually dies. Civil War II is where Captain Marvel has to take over because the whole world is fractured and the whole defense mechanism around it is fractured. She has to be the leader to step in as a Captain America But yeah, the comic book lore is very, very diverse. It is very, very heavy on attacking society. It is what art is. I mean, when they had created Black Panther and they had asked for more white people in Black Panther, they turned around and threw in the Klan, so Black Panther was beating up the Klan.
And that's going to be a wrap for today. Yes, Rick.
Hold on. Marvel Comics have been woke for 60, 70 years. They had Black Panther before the Black Panthers even existed. And it makes sense because comics are for kids. And kids are generous because their needs are taken care of. So like people, kids are nice. It's only when people grow up that they turn into pricks.
Well, on that, we're going to wrap today, and we'll have more continued conversations tomorrow. Thank you for joining us. Everyone, stay healthy, stay wealthy, and stay warm. The storm is coming.